As teachers, we have one of the best jobs in the world. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, but we actually, of all of the research we looked at last time, if you remember, we can't affect what students bring to our classroom, but more than anything else, we have the biggest impact. We can actually really change people's lives. And sometimes it's like the pebble in the pond, you don't realise at the time, you just think it was just all too hard work. But it's sort of a moral imperative, I think, and particularly maybe in this area where there's a lot of disadvantage. Education across the whole world is always seen as the key to progress in people's lives. So that's enough of my missionary talk. I think I would have been a missionary in a previous life, maybe. Anyway, okay. So when I looked at what you said, these were the things I identified from your feedback. The big picture was that you wanted to design an engaging learning environment. Okay, so hopefully you're going to model that. So hopefully you're going to be engaged for the day. And amongst those things is making the learning clear, so students know what they're meant to be doing when they get into class, developing a roadmap for learning, promoting a growth mindset. A lot of our students come into our classrooms, and for those I haven't introduced myself this time, but I've worked in TAFE and Learn Locals and with disengaged students all my life, and I was very involved in helping write the VCAL, so that my whole experience is either the VCAL or long-term unemployed blokes with bad backs. Although looking at you today, it's long-term, it's unemployed blokes with rotten legs, or women with, we've got a few injuries in the room today. So, but people who, are only in your classroom because they've got to get the Centrelink. So that's my history of what I've worked in. And they often come with a fixed mindset. I can't learn, I hate school, I'm not good at any of this. Looking at feedback for learning, so how do we progress learning by giving appropriate feedback? How do we create a classroom where it's a learning community, where actually we're learning together? How do we build students' self-efficacy? In other words, how do we teach students to learn how to learn? Because whatever we're teaching now is maybe going to change. All of the jobs that we all work in. I actually was emceeing a whole bunch of industry currency workshops recently, and so I did builders and labourers, and I did automotive, and I did engineering, and I did hospitality, and so it was really, really interesting. I was learning a lot because I was just the MC. But like, they've got a machine now for bricklaying. Did you know that? Have you seen that? Actually, bricklayers are machines. So we don't know what the future is. So we've got to teach our students to learn how to learn, because the future jobs are maybe unknown. So that's about building student self-efficacy. Making them accommodating for all learners. Maybe that's, someone mentioned about it's about LLM, but it's looking at dyslexic learners, students impacted by trauma. We have a high percentage of those students in our classrooms. How can we accommodate so there's equity access for everyone to learn? And also learning from each other, which is, for me, one of my top priorities. So a first strategy, so that's a lot. We'll be here for 2 days, and we want to finish. We're meant to finish at 4. We can finish before 4. We'll try, because you'll all be brain dead by 3 at least. So the first strategy I want to point out for you is called voting. I don't know if anyone uses this, but it's when you've got a whole bunch of stuff you've got to cover, and you want to know where the priorities for your class are. Like, what do they need? What do they know already? Because we talked about that last time. Always find out what do students know already. Because what was it? I think was it 70% of the time students know half of what you teach them already. So we don't want to tell you how to suck eggs, all right? Do we? And we want to respect our learners. So we want to look at voting to what's most important. So what I would have preferred to do, but I haven't, is to have made that into a poster and printed it off and stuck it on the wall. And then I'd give you all 4 little dots, okay? And I could write it up. So there's your 4 dots, for example, Maggie. All right, and everyone in the classroom gets 4 dots. And then what I do is, this is sort of a way of negotiating the curriculum, negotiating the focus, saying, okay, you've got 4 dots, everyone. It's on the board, everyone gets your dots, and you come and vote what do you want to spend your time on today. So you can tell me what I can move over quickly, or you want to spend your time on. So you can either do 1 dot for your favourite things, or if you're really, really keen, and this is why actually physically doing it with the red dots is really good, because some students will watch where the dots are and go, no, but I really want to do this one, and they'll put all 4 dots on that, okay? So I'd like you to look at that list, and because it's on the whiteboard, we can't all put dots on because it'll, I suppose we nearly could on one side, but it might be a bit problematic. Why not? Let's do it. Because okay, here comes the dots. Think about,
Yeah, they're not very sticky.
if you put them on just that side so it doesn't muck up my PowerPoint too much all the time. But it also, just from a student engagement point of view, everyone's sort of a bit engaged. All right, thank you for that. All right, well, this is obviously getting a big win. These are pretty even Stevens, but this one's not getting many votes, so we'll go over that one really fast. Okay, so what's our winners? Building student self-efficacy. What else is the next one? Learning community. Okay. What's next? Oh, learning from each other. That's a good one. Growth mindset. Oh, feedback. Accommodating. Okay. All right. Well, that gives me good ideas, so thank you for that. So, it gives us a way ahead, a way forward. So what I'd like to suggest now is that you create your own strategy list. I'm going to write it up on the board. I've also got them written down. And you might think to yourself, well, she's doing it, so I'm not going to do it. Why would I ask you to write it? Yeah, exactly. So we're doing a lot of brain theory today, actually. And if you write it, you'll remember it. So with your students, even though often there'll be reasons they'd like to take a photograph or they've got a copy or it's on the computer, if you really want them to remember it, get them to write it. And if they hate writing, because lots of students are pen phobic, get them to draw pictures, anything, just to scribble.
I think pictures are better.
Yeah, for your students, of course, yeah.
Because they're visual.
Yeah, but just actually, it's the kinesthetic learning, it's the moving. Do you remember we had an article from last time, is when you move, you learn. So it actually is getting, so I would like to suggest that on one of, if you don't have a little book, there's a few spares here. Draw up your sheets, so write down, okay, here was a strategy voting. Think about, could I apply this? How could I apply it, and will I do it? Maybe you do it already. Can I do it, or it's not suitable? How do you build trust? How do you build relationships? Because as we know, when you have positive relationships with the students, they learn, particularly with young men. They won't learn anything unless they trust you. And for a lot of them, we've got to work really hard to develop that trust account. So a lot of the key is finding out what you've got in common. And this is just reminding what we chatted about last time. So sharing experiences. So my suggestion for today is we talk about travel. Because I'm really feeling annoyed and frustrated, and I'm not looking at Facebook anymore, because I look at Facebook, a lot of my friends are doing really, really cool holidays overseas. Is anyone else in the same situation? And we're here, in the fog, in a classroom. It's not fair. I'm not happy about that. So I thought we'd travel today. You happy with that? Vicariously. We're going to go to Paris, we're going to go to Rome, we're going to go to New York, we're going to go to London. When we've got Melbourne and Sydney up our sleeves. So you should have in your handouts something like this. We did clock buddies last time. This is one that doesn't require you to understand the clock. So if that's it. Do you mind if I just take it? So you only get to take one person to Paris. You can't have more than one person. Now I need my specs so I can see who I'm talking to. So It's for a start. I think I stole yours. Maggie, would you like to go to Paris? Or where would you like to go?
Yeah, Paris. Oh no, actually New York, because I haven't been.
New York. So Maggie and Karen going to New York. So all right, Maggie, Karen. Then I'll come over here and say, all right, now Ken, where would you like to go?
Do I take it the missus?
No, me.
Oh, okay, here we go.
All right.
Quality.
Melbourne, all right. Yeah, okay. So Ken and Karen. Sorry, Ken. So you write down one person you can take to each of those places. And the only rule is, and see, this is good for low level. You could put any sort of pictures there. You could just cut and paste any sort of pictures. You could do workplace pictures. And the idea of this strategy is it's a share pair. Because, you know, often we hear, look, already we've got the cool dudes sitting all on this table, haven't we?
No,
So,
they're the naughty boys.
Oh, no, they're not. They're up the front. We've got the naughty girls up the back.
Oh.
And we've got the nerds over here. And nobody talks to each other. So this is a strategy to get students to talk to different people in the classroom and to connect and get different opinions, different perspectives as well. So therefore, we will give, you don't have to move. Everyone's got to come to you and you similarly, if you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, but everyone else has to start with someone on another table. You can't choose anyone on your table. Now, when you go home tonight, you know, your partner or whatever, your family says, what you do today, you can say, I went to Paris, Rome, New York. I go, really? Okay. All right, so just a suggestion, again, I'm sure many of you use it, is just to use music for transitions, you know, it just creates a bit of, I like to think teaching and learning is like a bit of a party. And I think it's fun when you learn. If we can make it fun, we get improved engagement. Because I don't want to be bored either. I've got to do this 5 times. I want to have fun too. All right, so this quote from Bill Gates I think is quite an interesting one to consider, which is your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. Now, when we've got students who aren't engaged and don't, you know, are struggling about being there, it can be quite demoralising because you're trying really hard, aren't you? You're doing your best and you spend hours sometimes preparing. But sometimes if we really take note of what's happening and why is that disengagement occurring, it can be a really good learning. So for myself, you know, you'll evaluate today at 3 o'clock when you'll be exhausted. So I think I should get evaluations done about 12. It could be better. But if you write your evaluations, sometimes, you know, mostly they're nice, and every now and again you'll get a really grumpy bum. And I tried really hard, but sometimes once I get over that, feeling a bit disappointed, I often learn something. I often, you know, think, actually, that was a fair point, actually. That's a fair point. So I think if we take notice of that, it's our unhappy customers or unhappy students sometimes can be ways we can learn about, because at the end of the day, I personally really believe that it's my problem. If the students aren't disengaged, it's my problem to try and work hard to get them to love learning. Sometimes there's students who are just not ready to learn. And we have to also not take it personally. But I think at the end of the day, it's my job to activate that learning as best I can. So I looked up the word engaged, and it's got lots and lots of different meanings there. It's when you're really into something, when you're really just loving it, when you actually forget about time. And a sort of a tragic thing to say is I actually, when I put these PowerPoints together and plan these days, I actually I forget what the time is. And because I just really enjoy doing it, because I'm thinking, and every day after I finish, I'll get your feedback and I'll change it again, My partner sometimes said, would you stop that? But I actually really enjoy it. So that's something I feel really engaged in. I'd like you to ask your Melbourne partner, and then you're going to share back to me. So this strategy of talking share pair with someone is what I call rehearsal for response. Because if I now ask the group, tell me what you think when you're engaged. Yeah, that would be the response. Because you don't look stupid in front of anyone. You don't want to say something that, like, what did she mean? I didn't really get that question anyway. What's she talking about? So if we ask our student before we ask the group a question, and we know from the research that discussions in class double the speed of learning. But they're really hard to do well, aren't they? So if we give students the opportunity to rehearse for their response, then when I ask you the same question, when do you feel engaged, in 3 minutes, and you know already that I may just ask you, everyone will have an answer ready. Okay? So share with your Melbourne partner. You're going to Melbourne now.